People online couldn't stop talking. Comments filled every feed. Did you see the photos? Was it an open casket? Why weren't the fans allowed in? Rumors spread like wildfire. Stories that Ace Frehley's farewell had been unlike anything rock had ever seen. Some claimed it was lavish, others said it was cold and quiet. But the loudest voices online wondered one thing. Why would a legend like Ace have such a private goodbye? Was it really what his family wanted? Or just how fame finally fades? Behind closed doors? We will unveil all these details in this video, so stay tuned. Ace Frehley wasn't just another guitarist. He was the original spaceman. The man who made thunder out of 6 strings. The spark that helped launch Kiss from club gigs into superstardom. His riffs defined a generation. His solos could make arenas shake. And his humor gave the band its heart. Yet behind the makeup and the pyrotechnics was a man who often struggled to balance the stage life with real life. Throughout his years with Kiss and in his solo career, Ace became a symbol of rebellion and creativity. His fans loved him not just for the music but for his authenticity. He wasn't polished or perfect. He was raw, funny, unpredictable, and always himself. When he finally left Kiss in the early 80s, people thought it was over for him. But Ace did what he always did best. He picked up his guitar and kept playing. His solo albums carried that same cosmic energy, filled with the wild freedom that only he could channel. In his later years, Ace kept performing, meeting fans and talking openly about his ups and downs. He spoke about redemption, about finding peace, about learning from mistakes. He seemed to be in a better place, older, wiser, but still that same kid from the Bronx who just wanted to play loud and make people feel alive. That's why when news broke in 2025 that he had passed away, it felt unreal. The man who had outlived so many storms, who had walked through fire and come back laughing, was suddenly gone. Almost immediately, misinformation filled the vacuum left by silence. The family had not released details about the funeral yet, and speculation began to fill the gaps. Some tabloids posted unverified sources. Others shared old photos from decades earlier, pretending they were from a funeral that hadn't even happened yet. It was chaos, the internet turning grief into gossip. But those close to Ace knew the truth. His funeral was private, intimate, and deeply respectful. Only close family and lifelong friends were present. There were no fan cameras, no interviews, no press statements. Just a quiet room, gentle music, and memories that only those who truly knew him could understand. Among those who attended were his former bandmates, Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, and Peter Criss. Despite their complicated history, they stood together once more, not as bandmates, but as brothers saying goodbye. There were no stage lights or spotlights, just old friends remembering the man who had once stood beside them as they conquered the world. Witnesses said the atmosphere was heavy but peaceful, the kind of stillness that only comes when legends meet mortality. Later, statements from the surviving Kiss members began to appear. Gene Simmons shared a message that read simply, "We shared stages, dreams, and chaos. Rest easy, spaceman." Paul Stanley posted, "We started as kids with big ideas and louder guitars. You made those dreams real. Thank you." Peter Criss, known for being private, shared only a photo, an old one of the 4 of them backstage laughing decades ago. No caption, no words, just memory. That silence said everything. For fans, the realization that the rumors were false, that there was no spectacle, no open viewing, came as both a relief and a revelation. It reminded everyone that behind the legend, there was still a man with a family, people who loved him deeply, and who deserved to say goodbye without the world watching. The real story of Ace Frehley's farewell wasn't about mystery. It was about meaning. The family's decision to hold a private ceremony reflected the life Ace had lived in his later years. Quieter, grounded, surrounded by the few who truly mattered. Those who knew him said it was exactly how he would have wanted it. No drama, no spotlight, just peace. Outside, while fans weren't allowed inside the service, many gathered nearby. Not to intrude, but to honor him. They held candles, wore old Kiss shirts, and played his solo songs through portable speakers. It was their way of saying thank you for the decades of soundtracks he had given them. People cried, laughed, and told stories about concerts, about first guitars, about how Ace's music made them feel fearless. That was the kind of tribute he would have loved. Real, unfiltered, and loud enough for the stars to hear. In the days that followed, tributes flooded social media. Rock legends, new artists, and fans alike shared their favorite memories of the spaceman. One common theme ran through all of them. Ace was genuine. Even with fame, even with everything he'd seen, he never lost that spark of wonder. He didn't play for awards or charts, he played for joy. Old interviews resurfaced where he'd laugh about near-death moments on stage, like the time he was electrocuted during a show in 1976, the incident that some later confused with funeral rumors decades later. He had turned that terrifying experience into part of his legend, joking that not even electricity could stop rock and roll. That sense of humor, that refusal to take himself too seriously, was what fans adored most. The misinformation that followed his death, the so-called open casket story and other false headlines, eventually faded as real facts emerged. Reputable sources confirmed that there had never been any such viewing, and that the funeral was strictly private, attended only by his loved ones and fellow musicians. Once the truth settled in, fans respected the family's wishes. They stopped speculating and started celebrating. Soon after, a wave of musical tributes began. Across clubs and small theaters, guitarists gathered to play Ace's most iconic solos. From Shock Me to New York Groove, the riffs echoed again, raw, alive, immortal. Younger players who had grown up studying his technique posted covers in his honor, tagging them with messages like, "Thank you for teaching us to be loud." Gene Simmons later shared that the family was planning a memorial concert to celebrate Ace's legacy later in the year. Not a somber event, but a full-scale rock show. Exactly the kind of send-off he would have wanted. It would bring together musicians from every era of his career, proving that even though the man was gone, the music could never die. Through it all, the lesson was clear. Rumors fade, truth lasts. What remains of Ace Frehley isn't a false headline or an online debate. It's the echo of every note he played, every stage he walked, every dream he sparked in a kid holding a second-hand guitar. In reality, none of those wild stories were true. There was no public viewing, no spectacle, no cameras. What happened instead was far simpler, far more human. A quiet farewell meant only for those who truly knew him. Still, the mystery surrounding that moment reveals something deeper about fame and the way the world treats its heroes when the music stops. He reminded the world that rock and roll isn't just sound, it's spirit. And that spirit still roars wherever people dare to be different. And as the final chords fade, one truth remains louder than all the rest. Ace Frehley never truly left. He just took his music to another stage, one even larger than the world he helped electrify.